Bases dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It's a Power Hour Saturday. This is going to need a name here at some point more than Power Hour, because I see that everybody's using Power Hour for hour-long shows, and I don't think we were the first, but we're not going to be one of like 75 different Power Hours. Yeah. So it'll have a separate name here soon. Just give it time. Lots of stuff to pack into 60 minutes this morning with Messigate. And is it over? Is it not over? Is it kind of over? Is it maybe just going into a next chapter? Who knows? We'll get into that here in a second. Atlanta and Orlando tonight, 8 o'clock. We'll be on the air on 92.9 The Game, radio.com at 7:30 as we get ready for that one. Kickoff will be just after 8. Not quite sure how far after 8, but not too far after 8, I don't think. Other games around MLS this weekend. You got USL matches. You've got the NWSL fall series underway. You have the FA Women's Super League underway, and games available on NBCSN and on digital on NBC Sports. You've got Nations League going on, all kinds of stuff, John. But we got to start with Messigate.
Messigate.
Why? Okay. Why did you go like horror movie?
No, there's a guy who is known in north of the border as one of the more. He's an associated voiceover guy up north, and he's also the old time PA announcer for the Toronto Maple Leafs, Andy Frost. And Andy had a voice like this, and this was how he talked, and it was very authoritative. And so that was just me breaking out my Andy Frost this morning.
Oh, okay. Lionel Messi says he's staying at Barcelona. Do you believe it?
For this year, until the contract is over, yeah.
You do? You don't think Barcelona is going to sell or anything?
Not at the moment. I think that right now, I think that it would behoove Barca to do it, but considering the lack of trust I have in Barcelona as an organization, anything is possible. So I'm just going to go with status quo for now. And then the January transfer window, day one, he signs a pre-contract with Manchester City. And then that final 6 months is going to be fun. So I put nothing past this entire situation, which means that Barca will probably find other ways to screw it up, which means they won't do anything.
Well, I don't think there's any other way they can screw it up. I mean, it's pretty much screwed up. I don't think there's anything else they can do. And I want to clarify something. You said those last 6 months, if he signs a pre-contract, would be fun. What do you mean by that?
Just the soap opera that's involved. It'll be fun viewing for us. We all know that Lionel Messi is going to go out there and he's going to give 130% each and every time for his club because of the love for his club, the respect for his club, the respect for the badge, the respect for the fans, all that stuff. Just the soap opera that will be attached to it. There'll be countdown clocks on networks. There will be all these kinds of things leading to the inevitable conclusion and just the subplot of how does Barca's season finish? Are they going to be second? Are they going to be third? Just all of that push toward the end of the year. From a soap opera perspective, that's where I brought in the word fun.
Okay. I was wondering because there's been a little bit of a narrative going on around this about Lionel Messi. He's not going to play hard and stuff like that. And it's going to be like, what's he going to do? Is he going to have a hamstring injury? It takes him out for the whole year. I don't buy that. That's not who he is. And I think if you paid attention to what he had to say yesterday, that's not where he goes with it. But no, I'm not convinced that this is over by any stretch. I don't think it's over by any stretch. I mean, Barcelona has handled this poorly, yes, but it's not like they're a complete and utter clown show when it comes to preparing a soccer team. I mean, Ronald Koeman is going to say, look, if I'm only going to have him for a year, I don't have the squad to win Champions League this year. It's time to move. It's time to get something done here. Can we do it? Manchester City has made no offers. PSG has made no offers. Nobody's made any offers because they haven't known how to engage this yet. Now they do. Now everything, as ATL Leone says, is on the table. Okay? He's under contract for one more year. He's going to stay. He's not going to go down the legal system. And I think those are things that are very important that Lionel said yesterday. He's not going to take a club that he loves to court. Now, he can separate his love for the club with how he feels about the leadership, who he says lied to him, flat out. He said that he talked about leaving Barcelona all year long last year. And the president said yes. And then when he kept pushing it after the season, the president didn't give him any attention. So he sent the Burofax because that made it official. And that's when it started the whole legal fight. And Lionel is like, I've been here since I was 14. I've given you everything I have. I think you've gotten something out of it. Mm-hmm. You told me I could leave, and now you're telling me I can't.
Yep.
That's disrespectful. It's not how you treat a champion and a legend. That's not what you do with this. I'm not wearing long sleeves, Abby. I'm wearing short sleeves. You don't treat people this way if you're Barcelona. It will come back to bite them. But now they have a way to get out of it. Now they have a way to solve it. Because they know they're not going to be taken to court. They know that Messi's not going to do this. And now, look, Lionel Messi turned the tables in a very brilliant way yesterday. And he's not somebody who's known for this. I mean, it's kind of bad that I had a flashback to Pulp Fiction in this whole thing. And the whole segment of, does Lionel Messi look like a... Does he look like a... Then Barcelona, why are you trying to...
Yeah.
Because they did. And they treated him horribly. And he said, okay, this is the game we're going to play. All right. I'm going to speak on it. And let's see how the reaction is after that. And the reaction's universally, wow, Barcelona, you guys are some jerks.
Uh-huh.
And this is how you want to do business? Okay. Yeah, that's good. Now is when Barcelona should be calling up Manchester City. And this is the problem. Barcelona's going to have to get over their own pride in this, and they're not happy about things that have happened. I mean, they don't want to help Pep Guardiola, which is another ridiculous thing. Best manager that the club ever had and a legendary player at the club. They don't want to help him. They've trashed him as much as they can. That whole idea of trashing, former legends of the club who had said anything, anytime about the club, they don't like that. So they don't want to help Manchester City. They need to do this right for Lionel Messi and for their own reputation. They need to go to Manchester City and say, look, we know you're interested. We need something in return to save face. Let's do a deal. Let's get this done so everybody wins. That's what they need to do. I don't know if they will. But that's what they need to do. And it would be best for them on the field, too, to be perfectly honest. They need more money to work with. They don't need to be paying Lionel Messi this much money in a year where they're probably going into it, if we're ranking Champions League contenders in the 8 to 10 range.
Yeah.
Probably somewhere in that ballpark. They could win La Liga, and that's important. That's definitely important, but I don't think they're the favorite. So this is a year where they need to reload and retool, and they need to clear up that salary spot. Questions coming in on the Twitch pitch on this. ATL Leone says he's staying unless Barca now sell him, which is what I think should happen. We'll see if it does. Ropes says, is this going to affect Barcelona's ability to bring in talent?
And that was going to be my question for you.
Well, I mean, look, this is the deal. Barcelona is still Barcelona, but if it is down to Barcelona and another club, and you're down to the final decisions of what to make, and another club is offering roughly the same amount of money, and they've treated their players better, it can be a deal breaker. I don't think I'm not even going to consider Barcelona because of this, because they are still Barcelona. But it can break a deal between a couple of teams, I do think, for sure. Any other things on Messi that I want to get to? Abby said he shouldn't have been treated this way, and if he wants to go, they should do the proper thing. I completely agree, and especially if they told him that he could go at the end of the season, and then they changed their mind. That's just no. Shooter's excited. He says, Wolves just picked up the next Messi. It's the Wolves' time. Shooter, you got to fill us in on that one. And he does says this whole thing reminds him of Tom Brady.
Okay.
Shooter's a New England guy, so.
Well, no, it's like I'm trying to. But did New England and the front office treat Brady the same way that Barca has treated Messi?
I don't think so. But yeah, there are a lot of similarities. That's actually a pretty good one. They stopped giving him as much talent around him. They kind of got to the point where it became an aging group, even though they did an amazing job to keep it going as long as they did. Yeah. They had to move on, et cetera, et cetera. ATL Leone, Wolves signed an 18-year-old from Porto. If he's the next Messi, that's a good deal, Shooter. That's a bold statement there, buddy.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Done a good job.
Go ahead. Shooter said Kraft told Brady that he could leave when it came time. He tried to trap him. There you go. Thank you. And I was not up on my Tom Brady negotiations. It's in the new book. Uh-oh. I got to get into this.
New book? Okay.
I might have to read this. I like to read drama. All right. Guillaume Balage is kind of on this point as well about, it's, yes, Barcelona is going to keep him. No, it's a bad look. It could end up being a Pyrrhic victory for Barcelona where you win, but you really don't win.
Yeah.
He's staying because he doesn't have an option. He, I think, is going to join training on Monday. He's got to do his coronavirus testing first. Messi felt like he had the verbal agreement. Bartomeu was not going to be the guy who let Messi leave. Messi's just not going to fight Barcelona on it. I mean, that's what he stressed in this, is he's not going to fight them even though he feels like he is in the right. He's not going to fight them on it because he doesn't want to take a club that he loves and has given him everything to court. He doesn't want to be that guy. So he said he's going to stay because he has no choice. That's the important thing. I think that was left out of a lot of the headlines. Messi changes his mind, he's staying. No, he said he's staying because he doesn't have a choice. He basically said he's a hostage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's exaggerating it, but that's what he said. So he feels like the club needs to get younger. He feels like the club's going backwards. He feels like the project hasn't been taken seriously enough. He feels like he hasn't had the weapons to do the things. I mean, he's very, very clear in what he said about the club. He's lost patience. He doesn't have respect for the people making the decisions. He hasn't been enjoying the game there. He wanted to go. He made that clear verbally. He felt like he had a relationship, and he had earned that kind of relationship with the club, that he spoke to them, and they would listen and respect that, and they didn't. So now you're at a point where he's got 1 year. I don't think he's going to re-up, so he's walking at the end of the year. He can sign that pre-contract in January, et cetera, et cetera. I do wonder if now opens the door for Manchester City to say, look, you're going to lose him for a free in January. We'll give you a little something now. Yeah. That's really the last card to play, and we'll see if it gets played here. We'll see how badly Manchester City wants him now, and we'll see if Barcelona will be willing to let him go if there is an offer on the table. That's the next step. Nobody has wanted to engage in a transfer offer yet because there hasn't been any idea of what that business would even entail so far. So now we know, and we'll see. Bartomeu, the elections for Barcelona president are in March, so it's not like you're going to have a new president come in and say, Lionel, we want you to stay. We're going to do all these things for you, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think there's any way he's staying past this year. If you want to get something, now's the time if you're Barcelona. We'll see if they do. I think that's all that's left.
Yeah, I think you're right on there. And I will say this, and this goes back to, you're getting me hooked on Fanatis. Watching Tei say yesterday was tremendous television on a bunch of different levels.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the biggest story in the country in Argentina. It's one of the biggest stories in the world. It is. You're talking about the greatest player that we've seen. Sorry, Cristiano Ronaldo fans. Sorry, Diego Maradona fans. Sorry, Pelé fans. Lionel Messi is it. He's the GOAT. There's no way around it. I mean, the guy is insane in terms of his ability, and he's played at one club his whole life. And now that's falling apart. So it's a massive story. I don't know if it's done yet, but it's a massive story. And it's been a little weird to see how it's been covered here in this country. I mean, he hasn't played in this country. You know, it's not an English language story. If this was an English Lionel Messi who was in the situation, I think it would be covered here more. And I don't think it's being covered here with a whole lot of depth and things. It's just the basic, he changed his mind, he's staying. Not exactly. There's a whole lot more to it that needs to be part of this story. We'll see what turns happen next. He's supposed to show up at training, I think, on Monday, or at least show up at the facility to do his coronavirus testing. And the season is set to start 2 weeks from today, and we'll see if he is ready to roll. We got questions about Atlanta and Orlando tonight, I am sure. We've got games all over MLS tonight as well. Just a handful tonight and then all the rest tomorrow. So you got a little bit of time on your fantasy lineups to look at them and maybe have some planning to do as these lineups come out about an hour before each kick. What are your big storylines you're looking for this weekend in MLS?
In MLS, I'm looking at Red Bulls, obviously, and the fact that they're playing Philadelphia, which to me is another storyline. And the profound disrespect continues with Philadelphia when it comes to juice boxes. So you have juice box disrespect on one end and the Chris Armas being relieved of his duties on the other end all in one game. I'm looking at Cascadia, obviously. You look at Seattle and Portland, and we all know what Cascadia can do for bringing eyes to a TV screen. You've got El Trafico this weekend. Hell is Real is this weekend. So, and in a rivalry sense, this is a big weekend for that. But really, for me, when it comes to storylines, I guess it's a bit of recency bias with the departure of Chris Armas and what it's going to look like with Red Bulls in Philly.
Do we know who the interim manager is for the Red Bulls at this point?
I have not seen anything, but I'll effort that real quick.
Yeah, I don't think they've announced it. If they did, it was very quiet. They are on Sunday at 7 o'clock hosting Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is still a fairly large underdog here, which makes no sense when it comes to your juice box lines, and Philly would be an absolute pick for me here. Yeah, at least according to Andrew Wiebe's article that posted sometime last night, they did not know who the interim manager was going to be on Sunday, which is craziness. It's not crazy to see when your first team manager goes, his assistants to go. Usually it's all a package deal. I think people are starting to understand that. That's the common way these things go. Sometimes the club has an assistant, like we saw here in Atlanta with Rob Valentino, who had come up from the twos. He joined Frank de Boer's staff, but the rest of the staff was Frank de Boer, so Rob continued on. That helped give a little continuity. You also brought up your second team staff to your first team in the interim basis. Would assume that would have been the easy move here, is bring up John Wolenick and his group, move someone from the academy into the Red Bulls 2 group. Why is there not an announcement? I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, Kevin Thelwell, the only words, Kevin Thelwell, team's head of sport, says an interim head coach will be hired soon. That's the extent of it.
Okay, you play in 24 now, 32 plus hours.
Yeah.
Who's preparing training today? Who prepared training yesterday? Like what? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, the games today, Houston and Kansas City is at 8 o'clock tonight. Goals is what I'm thinking in that one. Vancouver and Toronto is at 9:30 tonight. Be thinking about not falling asleep. And San Jose and Colorado tonight at 10:30. I want to see if San Jose can deliver a performance here. Yeah. They need to. They need to start winning games they should win and starting to win games that maybe you think they shouldn't win. They're still all over the map right now. And to get to that next level, you've got to start to get a little more consistency with this group. It just feels too inconsistent still. And look, this year's a crazy one, so I mean, I'm very willing to give the benefit of the doubt here that, look, 2020 has just wrecked any chance of consistency. That's fine. But these are games now, like, I mean, Colorado's a team that San Jose should be beating at home. They should be able to handle this one. Let's see if they do. Atlanta, Orlando, I think there's a lot of questions and a lot of different things here about this. What the lineups look like tonight is a huge one for me. You know, we've seen both teams try to rotate things a little bit in their previous matches. It's really difficult. And Abby shared an article in the Twitch pitch from England about how, you know, you've got top players looking at burnout. You've got top players looking at playing too many minutes in too short of a period of time. With the season ending, really no true off-season, couple weeks, coming back into preseason, jumping back into games. You got condensed international schedules with both club competitions and national team competitions. It's going to be brutal. Here, right now, you've got MLS going through a very difficult, condensed portion of the schedule with a lot of games in a short period of time, not a lot of training. It's showing. You know, MLS has less depth in general than these other clubs that have unlimited, you know, salary space and can sign as many players as they want, and it's easier to bring players up from the second team, and you can make these things work. MLS, it's tough, and it's showing. I mean, it's creating opportunities now. You know, you look at San Jose, for example, Cade Cowell, 16-year-old, gets an opportunity, gets a goal. Tyler Wolff makes his debut. You're seeing these things happen, but it also creates a very disjointed kind of play. And I think we're seeing that as well. You know, you didn't see a whole lot of goals in the midweek. We'll be curious to see this weekend how it goes. The lineups tonight is maybe the biggest question for me because on the Atlanta side, George Bello coming back in at left back, I think is a safe assumption. Jeff Larinowitz potentially starting because he didn't play on Wednesday and was rested specifically, potentially could start or at least play a large portion, play 45. You look at players who've played a lot of minutes. Brooks Lennon is the leader in that section. He was supposed to rest, according to Emerson Heineman in media availability this week, but he was forced into the lineup when the Pity Martinez negotiations got to that next level, and he was pulled from the lineup. So Lennon, maybe his rest day is today. I think you were probably wanting to rest him to have him fresh for Orlando. You might not have that luxury now, so who could potentially turn into that spot? We don't know. Could it be a John Gallagher? You know, could it be a Jake Mulroney moving over to the right side? We just don't know. There are the rumors about Ezequiel Barco. It has not progressed into the same section that Pity Martinez is in right now. It is still rumor. There's been talk of an offer made, but offers happen. The next step is where players would get pulled from a lineup, and there's nothing to indicate that's the case. Depending on which sources you're reading on the Barco situation, just to update, you've got sources out of Spain saying that Sevilla is chasing him and that they have either made an offer or they are considering an offer. And that Monchi, their director of soccer, their sporting director, has been following him since his time at Independiente, which most clubs have. I mean, that's one of those lines that gets worked into like every piece. Oh, they're scouting him. Well, I would hope so because, I mean, he played in the U20 World Cup and was a star for Argentina, and he also helped win the Copa Sudamericana, and he helped win an MLS Cup and an Open Cup, and yes, you would be tracking him. Everybody would be tracking him. He's on a spreadsheet for every club in the world. This is no surprise, okay? It's the next step where you're talking about offers. It's the step where you're sending people to watch him directly. Okay, that's a different conversation. So Sevilla is interested, it sounds like, and they were a new one. Fiorentina had been mentioned specifically by Ezequiel Barco in an interview with Argentine TV in the summer. They have reportedly still been in the mix, and this is from Calcio Mercato, that now it's a little bit of a competition between the two. And look, if you're Atlanta United, and I think Ezequiel Barco going has not been something that should be catching people by surprise. I don't think anybody knew the timing. And of course, you'd like to not have the timing be right on the heels of Pity Martinez if that's how it goes down, but you don't get to pick that sometimes. But from the Atlanta United perspective, if you've got two clubs who have money, Fiorentina and Sevilla, both can spend in this region, and they're both interested, and you have a little bit of a bidding war back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's kind of the ideal situation. Sevilla would be amazing if he goes to the Europa League champions. That's a huge deal. That's a very important deal. Fiorentina, I have no idea why it became a story that Fiorentina would not be likely or not be a good spot. I mean, you got to pay attention to what's going on at Fiorentina. They have new ownership. They have ownership that's based in the United States. They're going to be following this stuff, and they're investing in training facilities. Like, they're trying to get Fiorentina back to the glory days of Gabriel Batistuta and being a real challenger in Serie A. So they're looking to spend. So if you've got two clubs with pedigrees, two clubs with aggressive ownership, aggressive sporting departments who both want this player, well, that's a great thing if you're the team that has the player, because numbers start to go back and forth, and maybe numbers go up more than they would. We will see. That's still in the rumor stage. So I have no indication that Ezequiel Barco would not be part of the team tonight. Is he ready to start? Now, he played 60, and it was said that, you were talking about managing his minutes when he came off in that last match. I would assume for tonight. So is he going to be good to go to start? And then where does he start? Because then you start to look at, okay, Lennon on the right side might need the night off. Josetu's played a good bit of minutes here lately. What does your midfield look like because of that? Does Jeff come in? Does Remedi or Hindman pair with Jeff and Barco in front of them potentially with Mulroney wide? Does Barco play on the left and you keep more three central midfielders? Really, really interesting to see how this goes down. Shiva with a question on the Twitch pitch. I guess for those that question our front office decisions, the fact that we are drawing interest and not much activity from other clubs should tell us something right. 100%. And there's going to be narratives, and people who craft narratives sometimes don't like when real things disrupt those narratives. But selling Pity Martinez for anywhere between $18 to $20 million, and again, I've heard that it's more than 18. Anywhere in that ballpark is good business. It just is. More importantly, and this is some of the stuff that's come out of the Argentina side of things, where I'm assuming it'd be his agent speaking to reporters, could be a 3 or 4 year deal for Pity Martinez. And if it's at the kind of numbers we're thinking about, with Ozil being offered $20 million a year, is Pity going to get that? Probably not. But could he get half of that? Could he get 8? Could he get 6 even for 3 or 4 years and it's guaranteed? He has to take that. Yeah. And if he has to take that, then the club has to do right by him because they're going to get paid well. So, yes, that is a good piece of business. If the Barco deal happens and it's in the region that we're talking about, I mean, it's the numbers have been all over the map because I think the market's really hard to define at the moment with, teams dealing with losses from the coronavirus pandemic. Originally, I think the idea was $30 million. That's come down. It seems like it's anywhere between 20 and 25 right now in U.S. dollars. And if there's bidding, then it could go up higher from that. Again, it's a profit. Again, it's selling to a good club. And then you're looking at Atlanta United with the 3 largest transfers out in MLS history, which is part of the deal. And it's just been funny to see the same people who say that MLS needs to sell players say, well, they don't need to sell them like this or they don't need to sell them now. That's not how it works. You can't say we're not going to sell now because these numbers don't come back in January. Al Nassr is not going to pay for Pity Martinez like that in January. They need him now. They need him right now. Sevilla or Fiorentina might go get somebody else if they can't get Barco right now. Yep. They're looking to prepare for a season. They need players now. So you've got to be ready to deal, and then you've got to be ready to deal with the flip side. And then there's the story, the narrative that, well, you got to hire a manager first. Not necessarily. if the right player is available who is a fit for the Atlanta United way of playing, you can't wait because they might not be available after you hire a manager. You have to be doing things on multiple fronts. And look, this is the hard part of running a club. I mean, this is the tough time, but this is the exciting time where you do get a chance to kind of re-envision what it can be. Because a lot of times you don't get the opportunity to do what Chelsea's doing in this window, for example, where you're getting to go add like multiple impact players and reshape what your team is. That opportunity doesn't come very often. And Atlanta's going to get that opportunity again after starting the club in 2017, where you were literally starting from scratch. Now you're going to go get a chance to get manager, to get 2 designated players, and if this U22 initiative is what it's been described as, potentially up to 3 U22 players that you can spend whatever you want on transfer fees. Wow. I mean, that's massive. So obviously you'd like to have everything in place first. You'd have to have the manager in place first before that. I do think that people sometimes misunderstand the manager's role in transfers. It is not a doing the deal. It is an input situation, and you would like to have it. That would help. You might not have that opportunity. And if the right player is available, you can't miss that player. So, because the flip side is the pressure on, okay, if you're going to make these moves right now, team's going to need some help in the short term to be competitive because you're losing your 2, best attacking players that are on the field right now. Joseph is injured, losing Pitti, potentially losing Barco if that deal happens, and you're going to have to get some help. So that's the flip side, is you can't argue both things. You can't argue, well, you can't go get players until you have a manager, and you need players right now. Because the manager thing is not going to be easy right now either. It's easier to get players at the moment than to get a manager. It is. It's all going to be tough, but that's the opportunity that presents it, and you could see a team with up to 5 impact players next season in this team with a new manager. That's what you're doing. That's the whole point of this. It's pretty wild to be able to do that and get to that point where you are winning trophies in the last 2 years. 2020 has been a wild one, but you're going to position yourself to win more trophies in the next few years. That's where you're at. Abby says it's hard to do with seasons not being the same worldwide. It makes it harder. I mean, we've seen it in MLS before where teams have been reluctant to sell in the summer transfer window, but you have to. You have to be ready to do it. And the flip side is you have to have the scouting department that is ready with, okay, we've sold this player. I need these 5 players that I'm looking at who could replace that player. And what do they give me? I want somebody who has this characteristic, and this characteristic. Give me a list so I can start talking. You need that ready. And I think in the past we haven't seen MLS teams who felt comfortable in that because their recruiting methods were call up their favorite agent and see what players he had available. And that's not going to get it done anymore. Atlanta is a club that they scout well. They have scouted well. They've brought in talent that has been good, but also able to sell for more on the other side. So you've got to be ready to deal with that. ATL Leone asked, would Eric Lopez take one of those hypothetical U22 DP slots? He could. I don't know if he would count as a DP or if you would need to put him in that slot. And again, we don't really have that. It is hypothetical right now because we don't have all the terms of what this U22 Young Money initiative, I think that's what the athletic guys have called it. It's going to need some kind of catchy name, that's for sure. We don't know all the terms of it. From what we know about Lopez, I think the numbers ended up settling transfer fee in the 3.5, 3.7 range. He's going to be signed to a long-term deal, which you would think would be 4 to 5 years. So you're able to spread that over the life of the contract. We don't know what the salary would be, but it's not going to be crazy money because he's young. And in players in that situation, I think sometimes the expectation is the transfer fee's high, so the salary's high, and that's not necessarily the case because you're spending the transfer fee for the potential. The salary, he wasn't making much at Olympia in Paraguay before coming here. So 6 figures, yes. Over 300,000, maybe not. Over 500, I don't think so for sure. So you might be able to fit him in and not have to use one of those U22 spots. It's kind of like the designated player situation where, yes, he might go into one of those spots when they open up because you have him open and he would fit, but you could move him into a normal spot if you go spend, instead of the 3.7 for Lopez over 5 years, you go spend $20 million for a player that you signed to a 5-year deal that you can't put on the roster no matter what. So you'll have some flexibility with that. I don't think Lopez would necessarily have to be in one of those spots. And we don't know until we see salary on him, so we are still kind of guessing on that.
Turner Kirby's in this morning on Twitter, and he has a question. He asks, when can we expect a Phase 3 schedule for MLS, and is there any indication what it could look like matchup-wise? And he says parenthetically, specifically looking for a game versus a certain energy drink team.
No clue on matchups. There's no way to know that. Brian Dunseth said on the RSL broadcast in midweek that he was hearing very, very soon. Stephen Goff tweeted out from the Washington Post that they expected it, I think, before the end of next week, because they're going to need to, because you've got your last games in this phase on the 16th. Some of the rescheduled games moved to the 16th. And the problems are, a lot to do with the Canadian situation, because the 3 teams in Canada, it's almost sure that you're not going to be able to play games in Canada with American teams going there. That's pretty much a certainty. The question is, can the Canadian team stay based in Canada and travel to the U.S. for matches where they play home matches in U.S. stadiums? Or do they have to relocate and train and live in a U.S. market like the Toronto Blue Jays have had to do? Now, the Blue Jays had to make that decision months ago. So I don't know where the situation is with the Canadian government, and I don't think MLS does yet either. So that's the major complication with this.
And, you look at the numbers, and just to go back really quickly, the numbers for tonight as they're wrapping up their Canadian section. The numbers have decreased a little bit when it comes to juice boxes. Toronto's down to a -179, and it goes back to your theory yesterday when we had juice boxes about trying to get some action on the other side to try to draw folks in.
Yeah.
So, Toronto is now officially under 200 going up against Vancouver, who's a +465 coming into today right now.
Yeah. Kefsey talking about potential designated players. Who's a left wing, left attacking midfielder you would think could be a designated player here? Player type, if not a player. Yeah, nailing down specific players is just hard at the moment, and I think sometimes that can then create hashtag watches for players that are not really being targeted here yet. I think the kind of player you're looking for, the first question you've got to answer, I think, in the front office is, how do you want – well, the one thing we don't know is contract lengths, because we don't know, outside of what we're going down this road of Pity Martinez being sold, Ezequiel Barco being sold either now or at some point, and then before next season, I think is a safe bet. What are the contract lengths of everybody else? So I don't think Dom is going to be leaving at the end of the year. I don't think Kubo Torres is probably leaving at the end of the year. We know Joseph is under contract. The midfield, I would think Josetu and Heinemann are here for a while. We don't know Remedi's situation. Probably Lorenowitz could be retiring at the end of the year. Mo Adams, I think, is a solid cap space guy, but I don't know what his contract length is and where you project him. So you've got to look at the midfield and say, are we going to play 3 of those guys, or are we going to play 2 of them? So are you looking for a number 10, a central attacking midfielder, or are you looking for a left winger? Because long-term, or at least over the next year, 2 years, I think you're looking at Jurgen Damm as your right winger. So that's the biggest question. I think the basics of what you're looking for are somebody who is dynamic, is quick. I think you're looking for pace. If not straight up sprinting speed. You're looking for somebody who plays fast. You're looking for somebody who can play on both sides of the ball, so they can step up and press. They can defend when they're called upon, but they can also attack and be fearless. I think Atlanta United typically has looked for players who are good in the 1v1 on the dribble. You're looking for that to fit into this group as well. So whether it's central or on the left, I think those are the basics of what you're looking for. You're not looking for a slow player. You're looking for somebody who's fast, who can play fast, and you're looking for somebody who can contribute on both sides, because that's the baseline. Now, as we saw with Pity Martinez, and I think it became an unfair narrative, he doesn't play defense. Well, that's not true. He does. Are you asking him to defend deep? No, you're not. You don't want him tracking back to defend. You want him to defend up high, and he did, and he does, and that just felt like an unfair story. But are you looking for somebody who is maybe more of the Miguel Almiron mode, who is more comfortable defending in a wider range of the field? Don't know. And that's going to be a big question. I think if it's somebody central, you might be. If it's somebody on the left, you might not be. We'll see. But I really think it's pace, it's quickness, and an ability to play on both sides of the ball. I think those are the very simple basics of what you're looking for here. Shiva says, what trophies are on this season to win? Only MLS Cup, ? And yeah, that would be it. Supporter Shield, I think it's kind of meaningless this year anyway, but yeah, that's not going to happen. And it's just, honestly, I think right now for this team, it is to continue to build, rebuild the foundations of the way they want to play, to get everybody healthy, and to get into the playoffs. And get as high of a seed and as good of a route that you can get to get into MLS Cup. But you got to get in the door, and you've got to build to that. Because right now, this team is not an MLS Cup contender. They can be. I think they have the talent to be. But there's things that have to happen. And I think one of them is if you move Pity Martinez, you're probably going to need something to help this team become an MLS Cup contender. Without him, it's going to be very hard, unless you get somebody else stepping up to fill that gap, which is possible. But I think more likely you're probably going to need to go get somebody if you can. What else do we have on Twitter? Anything I've missed so far?
Not from conversations and folks from us, for you and for me, but there was one thing I did see, and it's the only place that I've seen it. Nico Shira, who is by his own, I want to get his own description of himself.
Okay.
When it comes to, he calls Nicola Shira, sports journalist, expert in the transfer market, over 97,000 followers. And this is the only place I've seen this information, so take it for what it's worth. He says, it's a done deal. El Pity Martinez's agent, Marcelo Simonian, has agreed to personal terms with Al Nassr. The winger will leave MLS on next week. Al Nassr will pay €15 million for Atlanta United after Banega, another great Argentine player, will play in Saudi Arabia, #transfers. So that's the only place I've seen it, but that came across overnight.
Okay, you just dropped a last part of that had nothing to do with the first part. What was the last part?
It was just the end of the particular.
Well, I know, but
he says,
yeah, I understand he tweeted it.
After Banega, another great Argentine player will play in Saudi Arabia, #transfers.
All right, I got to look at this because... Okay, got it. Banega had previously played in Saudi Arabia. Now I understand what's going on here. And yes, so this is as Nicola Shira says, a great Argentine player playing in Saudi Arabia. He's saying €15 million. What does that translate to in English dollars?
17 and three quarters.
17 and three quarters. I've heard higher. These things happen. Who knows what the final number ends up being, but I also saw, and I think it was from Merlo, that it was going to be that 3 to 4 year deal. So we will see. But yeah, it's so far along, it's going to happen at this point. So, and they want to get it done sooner rather than later. I haven't seen anything on their deal with Giuliano leaving. That's the one that we have not seen yet. So they drew 1-1 in their match yesterday, so they're not winning the league in this season that's going into the last week. They've got a match on Wednesday in the league. And then they are I don't know the exact setup for the Asian Champions League, but they're playing 4 games, the final 4 group stage games out of 6. They're playing those over the span of like 10 days. I don't know if it's a bubble scenario or what, so I'm assuming they want to get him in to be able to join them for that. That's going to be a really important situation for them. The group that they're in is pretty tight. There were 2 teams on 4 points. They were one of them, and then a team on 3. But, again, 4 games to play, so anything can happen. And they would definitely want to get him in for that starts on the 15th.
First match for El Nasser looks like it's on the 18th in match day 4.
Oh, I thought it was the 15th. There's a match day 3.
There is. Sepahan, Tuesday, match day 3 on the 15th, and they turn around and play on Friday. So Tuesday, Friday, and then on the 21st. So literally it's 3 matches in a week's time.
Yeah. The other thing, too, that when this comes up, ATL Leone says, which package will we need to watch Pitti overseas?
True.
I don't know about that one. I don't know who has the Asian Champions League, and I don't think anybody in the U.S. has any rights to the Saudi Arabian League. I will see what I can find out for you. We'll figure that out. But one other thing about, is this a good thing for the league? Does this hurt the Argentine pipeline? River's going to make about, it depends on who you read, anywhere between $350,000 to $500,000 off of this deal. Huracan, his first club, due to the solidarity payments from FIFA. The money comes from the transfer, but it's a FIFA rule. They're going to make around $500,000. So everybody's making money in this deal. Like the idea that this is bad, looks bad. Argentine teams sell players to the Middle East all the time. First, let's eliminate that idea that I can't believe MLS would do such a thing. Everybody does such a thing. It's money. It's cash. You want cash. You're going to go get cash. They have cash. They're going to spend cash. Done. Mm-hmm. So that part happens. It's not this idea that it's such a bad league and how could you do such a thing? Because he's going to get paid, and he wants to get paid, and they're coming in with a lot of money, and you're going to get paid. And then the club that he came from, River, they're going to get paid. And Huracan, where he started, they're going to get paid. Everybody's going to get paid. That's the whole point of this. And Huracan, especially, needs it right now. Badly. So they're going to be thrilled. And if Atlanta United ever comes knocking on the door for a player at Huracan, they're going to say, hey, you did good by us. And we didn't even have to deal with you in the Pitti Martinez transfer when he went to you guys. And you still helped us make money. We like you. What do you need? Yeah. That's what happens here. So I don't know what to tell you. That's just part of the business, and that's where we're at. So it looks like that's going to happen early next week. We'll get an official announcement. I'm sad that he was never really appreciated here in the way that he should have been. I'm sad that he's not going to get a chance to really, truly say goodbye in front of the fans. That Nashville game was a pretty good one to sign off on. I know he played in the next one as well, but the Nashville game was a really strong overall performance from Pitti Martinez. And no, it wasn't the only one he had in an Atlanta shirt. And yes, when you go back and you look over the last couple of years, Pitti Martinez is one of the leading players in Major League Soccer in creating shots for himself and for his teammates. You go back and you do the math, and I went back to the last 2 seasons of shot-creating actions. Pitti created 5.61 shots per 90 minutes he played. These are the people he's in the range of. He was 6th in the last 2 years in that number. Diego Valeri, number 1, and his have dropped off this year, but last year, ridiculous. Maxi Morales, who had 20 assists last year. Obviously, he's going to be creating shot. He's going to have shot-creating actions. Carlos Vela, we know the year he had last year. Brian Rodriguez in very limited minutes, so you could put him out of it if you wanted to. You're talking about somebody who's played 11.4 90-minute sections. So he's played the least of all these. Magnus Eriksson from San Jose, and that style of play is going to create a lot of this as well. And then it's Pitti. So Pitti's ahead of Pozuelo. He's ahead of Ladero. He's ahead of Carlos Gil. He's ahead of Sebastian Blanco in this scenario. And, yeah, that's going to get people's attention, and that's going to get fat checks written to you. And it's going to get a fat check written to him. So I wish he had been appreciated more during his time here. He's a very unconventional player, but he's a very special player. And he's one that hopefully in time will be looked at more positively by Atlanta United fans and everybody, because it just feels like he never got his due. And that was a shame. That was a real shame. I think it was a missed opportunity in that, because he's just he's unique. He's unique.
And one of the narratives for me over the last couple of days that was driving me crazy was that Atlanta United was lucky to get this number from this club. And I'm trying to reconstruct the quote in my head that Atlanta United must have just shown old P.T. Martinez highlights to Al Nasser to get this money from this
whoever
club.
said that, I would have thrown something at him. That's an insult.
I literally was like, you've got to be kidding me.
That's a complete insult. That's disrespectful to a lot of things.
Yeah. And it's just that whole idea of, Atlanta United got lucky, and with the pipeline argument that we were getting into a couple of minutes ago, that Atlanta United might have damaged their South American pipeline by doing something like this. Are you kidding me? You went through all of the different clubs that benefit from a deal like this, all the way down to P.T. Martinez's first club. How can a pipeline be damaged if you're benefiting, the player, giving him generational money, the opportunity to earn that and help out his family going forward, and help out all of the different clubs that he's been a part of all the way through? How is that damaging a relationship? I'd love to know that.
Well, people look at the Argentine pipeline as this tangible thing, which it's not. Atlanta United's a club who has a brand name in South America because of what they've done since they launched. It's not one pipeline. It's not a pipeline. They're known and they're respected, and that respect is not going to be gone here because of this deal at all. It's just such a weird thing. I really, truly, as I've said, feel like this year would have went dramatically different if Joseph hadn't been injured. Even with the craziness with the pandemic, I really believe that the 3-4-3 with Pitti and Barco playing behind Joseph would have been incredibly fun to watch. We just didn't get to see it very much. So it's going to be one of those, great, ifs in the club's history as to what would 2020 have been in a normal year and without the injury to Joseph? Yeah. They never recovered, and we've talked about it when it came to Frank. Frank never had a solution for that, unfortunately, when you got to Orlando. That led to where we are now, and now Pitti has this opportunity that is a special one for him. I mean, you mentioned generational type of money. I mean, that's what this could be for him, and as we've seen, I think, for a lot of people during a global pandemic where everything that we take for granted, I think, is kind of, has a spotlight shown on it of, well, maybe this isn't something you should take for granted anymore. And if he has the opportunity to go and make more money in maybe 1 year than he's made in his whole career, you got to take it. You have to take it right now. And maybe he wouldn't have before. Maybe, 2 years ago, if Al Nasser had went to River Plate, he wouldn't have taken the deal because he was in the Argentine national team and he was, younger and thinking he could get to a major European club. It always felt like that deal was really close for him. Like I said, he's a unique player, and not every major European club is going to have the same love for a player like that because you have to build a team around him. Could Atlanta have gotten more out of him? Yeah, I think they could have. But you got a lot out of him. It's just one of those. ATL Leone says, "We'll always remember your call on his last goal." Yeah, that was a special one. I still almost think the first goal in that match was better. because of all the different things he had to do to score it. It's a great way to sign off, and that's the game that I'll remember from him. The header against DC late to win that match is one that I'll always remember. It's been brought up in the Twitch pitch. The Open Cup run and the goal in the final, those are the things that I'll remember. And just some of the moments that he could do things that you just did not expect. Even his teammates didn't expect it at times. The pass to Gressel to open the scoring in the Eastern Conference semifinal last year. He hit a pass from 35 to 40 yards away through traffic, perfectly weighted, that no one on the field expected, including Julian Gressel. Go back and look at that pass to set up that goal. That's next level stuff. And that's just what he is. He's an artist, and it's a shame that not everybody had that same love for him here. But it is what it is. He's going to get paid well, and that's a good thing for him and his family. And I hope he looks back at his time in Atlanta fondly. I really, really do. All right, we got just a couple of minutes to go before we wrap up. Broadcast plans tonight, 7:30. For the Five Stripes Countdown on 92.9 The Game and the radio.com app. About 7 o'clock, we'll have the AT&T Countdown to kickoff on Atlanta United social media channels. We'll have the lineup for you as we get ready for this match. My big thing to look for in the lineup is what the midfield shape looks like, what the wide play looks like. I think that's where Atlanta can exploit Orlando, especially on the right side, because I think they're going to have to go to Kamal Miller again at left back. He's a center back. He made the mistake, or was involved in making the mistake, that led to Nashville's goal and an equalizer on Wednesday. You want to attack him as much as you can. If Jurgen Damm can get you 45, and I don't know if he's there yet, would love to see him potentially get the start here and just run at Kamal Miller for 45 minutes. I think Orlando will press more. I want to see what their lineup looks like. Are they going to all be good to go here, or do they have to make some changes too? I think they'll press more. I think they'll press higher. I think they'll be more aggressive. They will have some fans in the stands. How does Atlanta deal with that? Those are the questions I have going into it.
For me, it's Atlanta's back four up against the offense of Orlando. Daryl Dike, obviously, we mentioned yesterday, of the last 8 goals that Orlando has scored, Dike has 5 of them. How do you handle a guy like Dike? Juice box numbers heading out: Orlando City minus 132, Atlanta United plus 329. Your draws at plus 300.
Matt Wagner, as in our final question, said, Orlando likely to be chippy. How is the center ref tonight in terms of record-controlling matches?
Rivas.
Go back and look at Atlanta and Cincinnati from the MLS's back tournament and try not to shudder. It's him. So we'll see. He's young. He's very young. If I remember right, that was his first MLS match. He's had more since. We'll see if he's gained a little more control of matches. Fingers crossed. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully you guys can join us on the radio broadcast tonight. We'll have the full-time report for an hour after the final whistle, too, and we'll be taking your questions there. So thanks for hanging out with us this morning. We'll be back on Monday for a normal show, unless we get squirrely and have a watch-along tomorrow night with a whole bunch of MLS games. It's possible. I'm not going to rule it out. But we'll be back on Monday with a normal show and an overreaction Monday. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.